Hello, everybody, and welcome back here to another episode of the BSN Network podcast. Today is Tuesday, July 5th. Hopefully, everybody's having a day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. Hopefully, everybody is having a good, hopefully, everybody had a good 4th of July. Hopefully, everybody enjoyed it, whatever you did, family, whatever, family, friends, barbecuing, whatever you did. Hopefully, you had a great 4th of July. I know I did. I really enjoyed it, and now it's kind of back to the groove of things where, everyone, kind of back to just the regular old, obviously Monday being kind of, the 3-day weekend and stuff like that. So back to kind of just the groove and, a lot to get to today on the podcast, a lot to get to, obviously with a lot of baseball on and a lot of just, a lot of news in the NBA with the whole Kevin Durant situation continues to get going. As for yesterday, the Mets had a game. They were the only game in New York. Obviously the Yankees had a day off to play yesterday on 4th of July, and it was kind of a little frustrating, not having the Yankees playing on 4th of July. I think the Phillies not playing on 4th of July is a little bit weird just because of the fact that the history in Philadelphia with Independence Day, but it still was a good day of baseball. You start with the Nationals and the Marlins in the morning, which I watched a little bit of that, then watched the hot dog eating contest with Joey Chestnut, who's just insane. And then there was a lot of baseball on throughout the day. But the Mets played yesterday. They got the win against the Reds 7-4, so they improved to 50 wins now on the season. They are now 50-30, so 20 games above 500. They gain a little bit more breathing room in the NL East, and we're going to get to the Mets to start the show, so don't want to go too much into the SA's game, although I did watch parts of it throughout the day yesterday. So Mets yesterday, they will continue a 3-game set today against the Reds, second game of 3-game set. Mets will look for the series win today, which will then set up tomorrow for the series sweep. Scherzer takes the mound today, so the long-awaited return, all the Met fans out there, you're going to want to watch this one. Scherzer's long-awaited return. He will be back out there on the mound today for the first time since his oblique injury that landed him on the IL in the first place. So he'll be back out there today. Yankees open up a quick 2-game interleague series in Pittsburgh against the Pirates. So looking forward to that game, hoping that the Yankees can come out, off of a tough loss on Sunday, hoping they can come out, bounce back against a Pirates team that very beatable, as we all know, so that will be today. Other than that, that's kind of what's going on. Let's get to the topics for today's podcast. We got a little baseball and a little basketball similar to yesterday. We're going to start off with the Mets. So we're going to kind of do a general Mets update in a way. They're obviously the first team is the 50 wins in the NL, so that's what I'm going to first talk about is just the fact that they are the first team to 50 wins in the National League. Want to get to where they're at pitching-wise, Max Scherzer's return, and kind of just where the Mets stand right now in terms of scheduling coming up here in the month of July. Their games coming up. They got a couple series coming up that are going to be quite interesting. They got a couple, towards the end of July, mid to end of July, their schedule gets a little tough with good matchups. So I want to kind of talk about that, where they're at right now. Did it with the Yankees when they reached 50 wins. They were the first team in baseball. Mets are the first team in the National League. So want to get to that. Want to get to the pitching and all that good stuff. DeGrom obviously made his rehab start, so we'll touch upon that and all that good stuff in the first topic. Then I want to talk about Kevin Durant. Report came out today, this morning actually, from Woj, that said that the Nets are kind of being they're waiting things out. They're looking, and now it looks like they kind of got what they want in return for Kevin Durant. And a big reason for this is the Rudy Gobert trade. The Jazz got a ton in return. And that's for Rudy Gobert, who's a very good player, one of the better defensive players in the league, one of the better big men in the league. We all know that. But they got a ton of return. And I think now the Nets, a lot of what sources are saying, Woj kind of said it himself, Nets could be looking towards a deal like that. Similar to that for Kevin Durant, maybe even a little bit more because Kevin Durant's better than Rudy Gobert. So we'll get to that just as a second topic today in the podcast. I know it's been a lot of Nets basketball recently, but it's one of the biggest stories in all of sports, so you can't go without touching upon some of these new reports. So we'll get to that. Then we'll finish things off with the New York sports update as always. Yankees today against the Pirates, Mets today against the Reds, and that's what's happening in the world of New York sports, along with a lot of other baseball going on today. All right, so with all that being said, a lot to get to today on this Tuesday edition of the BSN Network podcast. This is the BSN podcast, and let's get into it. So, Mets yesterday reached their 50th win of the season, first team in the National League to do so, third team in all of baseball to do so. Yankees were the first, Astros were the second, Mets were the third, and the Mets are the first team in the National League to do so. Now, the Dodgers did, but technically, as we all know, the Mets got the win before them. So, Mets are the first team in the National League to get that 50th win, which a lot of people always look at the 50th win as kind of the big, like, halfway to 100, on pace for 100 wins, and I think that's really what's so big about yesterday's win was was now they're halfway there, right? And the Mets right now stand at 50-30. Like I said, sorry, I had to get my ESPN back up here on my screen here. So Mets are 50-30 on the season, .625 winning percentage, 26-13 at home, 24-17 on the road. They got a run differential of +60. They're on a winning streak of 2, and they went from 4-6 in their last 10. Now to 5-5 in their last 10. And we've said this, right? Over the course of a 162-game season, you're going to have ebbs and flows. You're going to have parts of the season where you look really good, and then there's going to be parts of the season where you look bad, and you might be going through a tough 5, 6, 7-game stretch where you go 2-5 or 1-6, and, it just doesn't look good. And the Mets are kind of coming out of that, right? They had a tough week last week. Overall, they lost, that one bad game to the Rangers. They got swept on the 4-game season series against the Astros, but they're able to bounce back now. They're able to get to that 50th win. They're now halfway to 100, and they're beating the teams they need to beat. They ended up taking care of business against the Texas Rangers, taking 2 of 3 against them. They were able to take care of business yesterday against the Cincinnati Reds. They'll look to win the series today, which will set up for the series sweep tomorrow. And then after this, you have 4 against the Marlins, which is beatable. Now, the Marlins, they got very good pitching, and that's the one thing about the Marlins team that I'll continue to talk about. Anytime you're going up against the Marlins, on paper, you might say, oh, this team stinks. But they have good pitching, so it always makes for an interesting match, especially if you meet up with Sandy Alcantara and Pablo Lopez back-to-back or in the same series to begin with, because they're 2 of some of the better pitchers in all the National League. And realistically, to be honest, you look at the numbers, they're 2 of some of the best pitchers in all of baseball. So the Marlins have good pitching. Their hitting's not very good, bullpen, Outside of Alcantara and Lopez, they're very average outside of that. But then you have the Marlins from 4. Then you have a big set against the Braves. Then you have the 4-game set against the Cubs, which you should win. And then things get a little choppy. Then you got 3 against San Diego, 2 against the Yankees, and you have more against the Marlins later on in July. So the Mets right now stand in a good spot. And they are in a very good position right at their 50th win. Because they started to struggle a little bit. People getting a little worried. And sure, there's still needs on the roster. Nobody's denying that. They still need another bat. They could still use some bullpen help. Even yesterday, watching Drew Smith go out there and get hammered on the 4 pitches that the first 4 pitches he threw. What were they, 3 hard hit balls and a home run? He gets hammered. So there still are needs on the roster. Similar to the Yankees, they still need outfield. They can maybe use another bullpen piece. Same thing with the Mets. They need another batter and they need another a bullpen piece as well. Now, where they get that batter, that's, where they get that hitter, that's still up to debate. Whether they trade one, bring up Francisco Alvarez, who got promoted to AAA, whatever they decide to do, they need a batter, they need another big-time bat in the lineup that can do some damage and provide some more depth for this team. Now, like I said, they're at their 50th win. 50th win, a big mark in a season. You look at the mini kind of marks. You look at the months and you go, okay, where you're at Memorial Day, where you're at here. Then you look at where you're at 4th of July. And the Mets right now are at 50-30. And they're in such a good position because I look at it, and I'm a Yankee fan, but on my honest opinion on it, Mets can only get better from here on out because you're going to get Scherzer back tonight. If you hope that goes well. You hope he comes out of that start clean, first start in the major league since the oblique injury. You hope that comes out clean. Jacob deGrom made a rehab start over the weekend. He threw 100 miles an hour. He looked like the Jacob deGrom everyone expected him to be. Began the first inning with 3 straight strikeouts. That's the Jacob deGrom they need, and that's the Jacob deGrom all Mets fans want to see. He should be back soon. So you're getting Jacob deGrom back. You're getting Max Scherzer back. You add those 2 guys back in the mix, and for the most part, a rotation that has struggled at times this year, has shown some real inconsistency. They have done just enough to keep themselves above water without Scherzer and deGrom, but Now they're getting those much-needed reinforcements, and you add those back into the mix. Then you add the fact that the Mets still have the trade deadline coming up, more opportunities for them to build upon their batting. You also have more opportunities for them to build upon their bullpen. So the Mets right now at 50 wins are in a great spot because now they're just getting healthy. Now they're just entering a zone where they can truly improve this roster, both with bringing guys off the IL and bringing guys in via trade or minor leagues, whatever they decide to do, but they're in a good spot. And you look at their schedule, they got games coming up that are very winnable. These two next games against the Reds, especially with Scherzer on the mound, very winnable games. Like I said, 4 against the Marlins. They do have good pitching, but those should be games you should take at least 3 or 4 of, and you should have, there should be no other way to put it. If you can't take 3, you should take 3 or 4 against the Marlins. Marlins are a 4th place team in the NL East, 38 or 20. What are they? 28 and 4 or 38 and 40. So they're 2 games below 500. They're 11 games back. They're not a terrible team, but they're a team that if you're going to want to compete for a championship, Marlins should be a team you should be beating. And they did that earlier in the year, and they've done it throughout the season. So they should have no problem with that. Then, like I said, that Braves series is a big one. That is a huge series. But you hope by then, Scherzer's fully in the groove. You hope that he's, going to be pitching in that series. And I don't think DeGrom would be back that soon. But you get DeGrom shortly thereafter the All-Star break, and boom, you're going into August with a healthy of a team, with a improved team, assuming they do stuff at the deadline, and a team that will be fully ready to contend for the pennant, for the World Series, come October, and all that stuff. So, Mets right now stand in a good spot. And I think the 50 wins is the big benchmark, because you're halfway to 100. So, it took July 4th. They didn't get that as quickly as some other teams. It took them until July 4th, but they got there nonetheless. Today, Scherzer will start. And like I said, they're going to have improvements, reinforcements coming, which is huge. And I said it at the beginning of the season where they just needed to find a way to keep their head above water without DeGrom. And then when Scherzer went down, they needed to find a way to just find a way to compete without Scherzer and Jacob DeGrom. Now they did that. They had a couple guys step up big time. I'll talk about one of them here in a second. Now you're getting Scherzer back tonight. DeGrom shortly thereafter. And I know a lot of people there's a couple Met fans out there that are concerned that are saying, oh, sure, DeGrom shouldn't be throwing 100 miles an hour in his rehab start. I look at that as a positive sign. If you're a Met fan, I would personally look at it as a positive sign and say, look, yeah, he's throwing 100 miles an hour, but that's a good thing. That's showing you that he's healthy. That's showing you that he hasn't lost anything. It's not like he's lost velocity with all these injuries over the past year. He hasn't pitched in a game in July, and he's coming out and he's dominating. So I have no issue with him throwing 100 personally. I'm not a Met fan. Maybe it would be different if you're in a Met fan's shoes because I know how frustrating it probably is to have your ace of your rotation, the best pitcher in all baseball, when he's out there, not being able to stay healthy. But throwing 100 in his rehab start, I think is funny, number one, because he's blowing it past these minor leaguers, these guys that are in low A ball. I mean, he's playing for the Port St. Lucie Mets. That's the what, singlet or the low A ball? I think that's like the equivalent to the Tampa Tarpoons with the Yankees. Those are young players just coming up, and he's dominating 100 past those guys. So, but you should get both those guys back. Now, another guy that has really stepped up big time, and look too, we talk about all the injured players, but you got to look at the guys that have made the big contributions to the team. Jeff McNeil's been great this season for the New York Mets, batting .318. He's been great. He's got the highest on base percentage, .375, and he's been phenomenal. For a guy that has a couple down years, has changed his swing, has been back to the player that everyone saw a couple years prior, where he was just contact, getting on base, finding ways to get on. He changed his swing, he worked mechanically, and now look at him. Batting .318, he's got an on-base percentage of .375. Both those are the highest on the team. And then Pete Alonso, 22 home runs, 69 RBIs, and 80 hits. All three of those categories, home runs, RBIs, and hits, all lead the team. So you're getting big contributions out of Alonso and McNeil. And Alonso, you could say, defensively hasn't been great, but he's doing just enough defensively. He's been better this year. He's doing enough defensively. His hitting is coming up big, and they've both been big players. Now, and everybody's been talking bad about Lindor, and rightfully so. He has not had a very good year. He's batting .248 with a .329 on base percentage, .426 slugging. But, he gets on base, .329. That's not bad on base percentage at all. His slugging's bad. His OPS isn't very good. He's not nearly on top of the categories of many other players, but they haven't really needed Lindor that much this year. Not like last year was Lindor, relied on so much. They haven't really needed him. Marte's been great this season. Marte's been very good. Alonso's been very good. Jeff McNeil's been good. Eduardo Escobar's a weird player because, he's a streaky hitter, and he's .227. I talked about it yesterday with Aaron Hicks. Aaron Hicks is a streaky hitter. Streaky batting average is in those .220 areas. Where when you're playing well, you can get it up to .240, .250. But when you're really bad, it can get all the way down to the low twos and maybe under the Mendoza line into the ones. He's a streaky hitter. And he had a nice hit yesterday. I think he tried, I think he had a single and he tried to leg it out for a double. I think that's what happened, if I'm remembering correctly. But the Mets have gotten good contributions from Jeff McNeil and Pete Alonso. Marte's been good. Even Mark Canha has had a solid solid season. A guy that came in, has kind of done what he expected to do. .267. Brandon Nimmo's been great. Got the scoring started yesterday. So you've gotten a lot of key contributions. Lindor really hasn't needed to be that big-time guy. If Lindor catches fire, it makes the lineup that much better. But you've gotten good contributions. Now, there's still a lot of there's still a lot of holes. Like I said, Escobar a little streaky, right? You want to figure out what's going on with the catcher position. Could Wilson Contreras be an option to bring in? The only issue with that is he's a big contract. If you would bring him in, knowing you have Francisco Alvarez coming up the pipeline, how long would Contreras be? Cubs are going to want a lot for him. So, and like I said, some bats. Mancini's been an option. Has kind of been rumored a little bit. Josh Bell could be an option from the Nationals, having a career season with the Nationals and really should be an all-star. And I actually think he's not getting as much attention as many would expect because he's with the Nationals. They've won 29 games this year. They've lost 53. They're last in the NL East. They're not a very, very big market. They're in a rebuild. He's kind of in the shadow of Juan Soto over there. But Josh Bell has had a phenomenal season. You could possibly bring him in as an option. Mancini, like I said, also an option. Contreras could be a possibility. Nelson Cruz maybe, also another guy from the Nationals. C.J. Cron from the Rockies, who's having a career year. We all know what the Rockies are. They're a struggling team, might look to sell. So there's a lot of bats out there. Or the Mets could go with the Francisco Alvarez route as well. But they've gotten some big key contributions from a lot of guys. Benintendi could be an option too. Ian Happ, like I've said. But I don't think, though. I think those guys have more of a chance of going to the Yankees. Because the Mets, let's be real here. Their outfield with Nimmo, who's very solid, Canha, who's had a solid season, and Marte, their outfield does not need, bringing a guy to be a DH, you could. But Benintendi could do well in the outfield. You don't really need an outfield right now. What you need is a catcher, another bat. Whether it's a catcher, whether it's just a guy that could play DH, whether it's a guy that could play infield, outfield, that could be more like a Mancini type guy. Mancini's could be more flexible in terms of where you could put him. But just another bat. And, they've gotten some big contributions from a lot of guys, but without a doubt, they definitely need another bat. Now, this season, like I said, the pitching this year has been kind of wild, right? When you look at the pitching and you look at the leaders not being Scherzer, not being DeGrom, you kind of question. But the leaders the team leaders is wins. Carrasco has 9, which is crazy to think, but he's a streaky pitcher. ERA, Bassett at 4.01. That's because he's made more starts than Walker. Technically, probably should be Walker at 14. He has 14 starts. Bassett also leads in strikeouts, 95. Saves is Diaz, 18. And holds is Drew Smith, who has 14 holds on the season. Now, Drew Smith, I think a lot of Met fans would agree. You look at the numbers, he's been very good this year. But I think a lot of Met fans would agree recently, specifically yesterday. So, Drew Smith has not been the pitcher I think everybody expected him to be recently. But still, another guy in the bullpen where you could definitely, there's better options out there than Drew Smith. But one of the guys I've really seen this season, I have him on my fantasy team, so maybe this is a little bit of a bias, but is Taijuan Walker. And he yesterday again was dominant. This season, 7-2 with a 2.86 ERA, 61 strikeouts, and a whip of 1.14. Having a great year for the New York Mets, and a guy that, in reality should be an all-star. Now, is he going to be an all-star? That's a question, for another day. That's kind of one of those topics where it's all opinion. You could put all stats into it, whether, he's also in the National League with a lot of other good pitchers. But you look at the numbers, Taijuan Walker could very well be an all-star with these numbers. He's 2.86 ERA, like I mentioned, 7-2, coming off a very good start yesterday. His last 7 starts, his last ERA, his last 7 days, 2.03. And I believe I read a stat. It's like his last 5 starts or something, he's got like a 2.35 ERA or something between the lines of something like that. He's been great. And he's actually gotten better as the season went on. Now, the biggest thing for the Mets, he's 29 years old. The biggest thing for them will be 30 in August, is if he can turn this and make it what he's done in the first half of the season, do it in the second half. Because last year, he was great in the first half, got to the All-Star game, all that good stuff. Second half was really bad, and he ended the year with a 4.47 ERA. And on paper, you look at that and you say, that's not a great year. So right now, first 14 starts of the season, he's been phenomenal. And especially recently, he's been even better. But now, it's all about coming out of the All-Star break with him. But if he continues to do well, and you add Scherzer and DeGrom to the mix with Taijuan Walker, you put Bassett into that mix, who right now is out. He's scheduled to miss his next start, so we'll see if he comes back sooner rather than later. But he's a guy that's out now. I believe he's out. I don't know if it's a COVID IL. I'm not sure, but he's out now. And a guy that has been great this year as well with a 4.01 ERA. So, and they've been streaky at times, right? Carrasco's been streaky at times, but when you look at the Mets rotation, we said this at the beginning of the year, when they're all on and they're all clicking, it's very good. DeGrom, when he's clicking, we all know what he's capable of. Scherzer, when he's clicking, don't have to explain what they're capable of. Taijuan Walker, when he's clicking and he's pitching well, this is what the Taijuan Walker you get. Sub-3 ERA, guy that's definitely in the All-Star conversation. Chris Bassett, very good pitcher. His ERA, the only reason why it's in the 4s is because he's had a couple bad starts. But when he's out there and he's dominating, he's doing his thing, he's a very good pitcher. Carrasco, same thing. He's very inconsistent, but he's a guy that can go out there and give you 6-7 strong innings when he's on. It's just a matter of him being on consistently. So, Mets are at 50 wins. Definitely reinforcements coming coming off the IL, trade, maybe minor leagues. We'll see where they go. We'll see what Steve Cohen does. Knowing Steve Cohen, he would go out and make the big-time moves, the big-time trades. The Mets don't need to make that big-time trade. They don't need to. They are a team right now that's in a position where they need a couple of needs. They're not in need of 5 big-time moves to completely transform this team. No, they're not there yet. If they needed all those big moves, they wouldn't be at 50 wins right now. They still got a lot of solid pieces in place, but they definitely need some other pieces to complement that and bring in more depth, bring in more pieces for the second half of the season. They're going to get that from all different avenues. We'll see where they go, but the Mets have hit 50 wins. So second team in New York now, both the Yankees and the Mets are to 50 wins. Two of the 4 teams at 50 wins right now in baseball are the Yankees and the Mets. So 2 New York baseball teams continue to play at a very high level. And if I had to guess, I would say the next team to 50 wins is probably going to be the Brewers. And then after that, I will probably say it's going to be the Red Sox. Maybe the Red Sox. Twins right now are 46 and 37. Red Sox are 45 and 35. Red Sox could be, but they got the Yankees coming up. That's not going to be an easy series for them. And same thing for the Yankees. The Yankees will have to come to play in that series as well. But Mets right now, 50 and 30, 3.5 games up on Atlanta. And I think a lot of Met fans right now are circling that Atlanta series Monday through Wednesday of next week against the Braves on the road. That's going to be a fun series. But that's going to be a big series, too, before the All-Star break. That's going to be a big series before the All-Star break for the New York Mets. All right, so that's what I got for the Mets and them first National League team to 50 wins. Yesterday as well, the Dodgers got to 50 wins, but technically Mets were there first because Dodgers out west game ended much later. Game started at 9:10 Eastern, lasted 3 hours and 6 minutes. So technically Mets on paper, when the game ended, they got to 50 wins before the Dodgers did. All right, so now we're going to get to some basketball. Talked a little baseball yesterday with the Yankees and their outfield options. Going to talk a little baseball again today like I just did. Now we're going to get into a little bit of basketball similar to yesterday. So I know, this might be getting old. This has kind of been the same stuff every day, but this is kind of where we're at with one of the bigger developing situations in all of sports with Kevin Durant requesting a trade and the drama in Brooklyn. So Woj reported today, a report came out from Woj, who I talked about yesterday. I talked about this yesterday, like I said. There's about 25 different insiders, reporters out there. There's probably more, but those are about guys out there that claim that they have the most trustable sources. I think the three most trustable, probably Windhorst, who everyone's got the memes about with him. Why would they do this? When he was talking about the Jazz and all that. I believe it was the Jazz. And then Gobert makes a trade, and now everyone's, he's a genius now. But you have him, you have Woj and Shams. So I talked about this yesterday. There is so many different reports coming out. Nets are going to do this. Nets are doing this. Nets are talking to this team, this, that. It's all over the place. My most trustable is Woj and Shams. Windhorst right there, behind them a little bit, but it's Woj and Shams. Also because Shams is coming right from the players. So Woj reports today that Kevin Durant trade market still taking shape. Nets trying to outline a package. So the Nets are trying to find the perfect package for Kevin Durant is basically what this is saying. And I totally agree with that. And this continues to develop. It continues to kind of take form, take shape. I'm sure the Nets are receiving calls every day. Look, I still stand by this, okay? If the Nets can do whatever they can to retain Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, do it. If they can do something that would make Kyrie and Kevin Durant happy here and keep them here, do it. Now, under certain circumstances, if they want a different guy or they want a different coach or a different player, whatever it is, do it. Because keeping Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving is, do it if you have to. But the Nets, too, like I've mentioned so many times, they can't mess this up. If you're going to trade Kevin Durant, and I would assume Kyrie Irving right after him, or maybe both of them in a package, if that's the case, you better get even more in return. Nets better get a lot in return. So, in the heat of the moment, when I said that the Nets need to get a deal done soon, I actually retract that statement a little bit. Because when I said they needed to get a deal done soon, get it done now, so then guys can come into training camp and all that stuff. When I said that was in the heat of the moment. It was when I was trying to just think of so many different deals. I retract that a little bit. Now, I still to a certain extent say, look, if you're 2 weeks before the season and Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on your roster and they're committed to not playing for you, then you actually got to, step up and get rid of them because then you got to bring in the new pieces, build chemistry, and get going with the season. But I actually like the approach the Nets are taking a little bit here in terms of backing off, waiting, looking for the best possible deal out there. Because you cannot possibly trade Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, not get what you really wanted in return, rush the deal, get an return, and then set your franchise back even more. Nets gotta wait it out and wait for the perfect opportunity to come where a team's gonna go all in and get a big-time deal in return, get a big-time return for Kevin Durant. And like I've said, multiple first-round picks, 2 to 3 all-star or star players. Nets are looking for a lot in a Kevin Durant deal, and rightfully so. And there's people in basketball right now, like there's fans out there that are like, the Nets are, they're waiting out. They're acting like Kevin Durant's this great player. Well, he is. Kevin Durant's going to go down as a top 15 player of all time, arguably top 10. That's a different story, different day. I don't want to go down that road. I know a lot of people are pretty passionate about the top 10 players of all time. But, this is the best player in the world. This is a top 3 player in our game today. Right? You should get a lot for Kevin Durant. You should get 2 to 3 star players and 3 to 4 first-round picks. You should. And I'm going to outline the Rudy Gobert deal, and I think this is perfect because the Gobert deal goes down. And now you look at what the Nets could get for Kevin Durant. Because what the Jazz got for Gobert was a long, long haul of deals, players, and picks. Now, the Nets should outline a deal similar to that, maybe even bigger than the Rudy Gobert deal. It should be bigger because Kevin Durant's better than Rudy Gobert, let's be honest here. And I'm not downing Rudy Gobert's talent. He's a great player. He's a very good defender, very good big man that will work out well in Minnesota, which is they're going all in right now. They got Gobert now. They add that to Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and D'Angelo Russell. We'll see what happens with him. I know he's popped up in some trade conversations, but he's another guy there too. They have a solid group over there. But if a team's going to want to go out and trade for Kevin Durant, you're going to have to get a lot in return. So here was the Rudy Gobert deal. So the Timberwolves get Rudy Gobert. Jazz get Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Leandro Bolomaro, Walker Kessler, and Jared Vanderbilt. So that's 5 players they got. Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley being the most impactful, going to be the most impactful for the Jazz. They get a 2023 first-round pick, unprotected. 2025 first-round pick, unprotected. 2027 first-round pick, unprotected. So they get 4 picks, 3 of which are unprotected. Then you have 2029 first-round pick, top 5, and that is protected. So 2029 first-round pick, that's far from now. But they get a 2023, 2025, so 2027. So over the next 4 or 5 years, they have an opportunity to really build their roster. And it would be going to be interesting to see where the Jazz go. And I really wonder if the Jazz right now are in a situation where they possibly could be kind of selling a little bit, blowing it all up in a little bit, resetting. Got rid of Gobert, replenished with some young guys, replenished with Beverly and Beasley. They're not really young. They've been in the league a little bit, but, Vanderbilt's, relatively younger. Those are options that could be used more down the road. You wonder if they could be setting up for a Donovan Mitchell possible deal here, which if the Nets do that, you would expect to get a lot from the Jazz in return as well. And I've said that. If a Kevin Durant trade's going to be, if you have a Kevin Durant trade, it better be. I've used many examples. I'm going to use a couple teams. Heat, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, 4 first-round picks. Should be something like that, right? Bam Adebayo, star. Tyler Hero, entering his prime, young star. 4 first-round picks. There's a whole lot of flexibility right there. And that makes up for the 50,000 first-round picks he gave up for Harden in that awful trade with the Rockets that we should have never made. So there's that. You could go, if it is the Jazz, Donovan Mitchell should be in the deal. 4 first-round picks. Mitchell, maybe, I'd say Mitchell. But here's the thing with the Jazz. They just gave up a lot, or they just got in return a lot from the Timberwolves. You wonder if they would really want to take one of these picks, the 2023 first, 2025 first, unprotected. You really would wonder if they want to flip those and give them away right after they got them. But Donovan Mitchell should be in that deal. If he were to go to I'm just thinking, let's say the Cavs. I'm just using the Cavs as an example. Jared Allen should be in that deal. Evan Mobley should be in that deal. And maybe another guy. I'm trying to think. Evan Mobley. Maybe Sexton could be in that deal. And 3 first-round picks. Something like that. Right? If he goes to the Raptors, Scotty Barnes better be in that deal. He better be in that deal if he goes to the Raptors. Right? Scotty Barnes, you could look at, him. Maybe you go Anunoby or Van Vliet or Siakam or somebody like that, but I would probably go ahead and say Scotty Barnes and maybe 2 to 3 other players. But Scotty Barnes, as we all know, got so much potential, had a very solid year last year, second-year player, going to be a star in this league. He should be in that deal. So just going around the league, that's what some of the deals should look like. If somehow Kevin Durant goes to the Kings, just saying, De'Aaron Fox should be in that deal. I'm just using these as examples as to what the Nets should get. And I actually like that the Nets are being patient. Because unlike they were with Harden, they went out and they gave away all their assets. I mean, look at what they got in return for the Harden deal. Kevin Durant's better than Harden. It should be one of those monumental, you'll talk about deals like there should be 8, 9 pieces to this deal. 2 to 3 players and 4 or 5 picks. 7 to 9 pieces in the deal between picks and players. That's what it should be. And there should be young stars, guys that are great right now. That's what you should get. So I like that the Nets are kind of outlining packages and kind of putting this thing together. And look, don't do it. If KD wants to go to somewhere, don't just, say, oh, KD wants to go here, let's trade him here. No, you don't have to do that. There's nothing in his contract that says that. Right? He requested a trade. You have the freedom to trade him anywhere. You trade him someplace and he's not happy and you get a bunch of picks in return, that's all you got to worry about. Then you're out of the equation, right? So Woj, Kevin Durant trade market still taking shape. Nets trying to outline package. The Brooklyn Nets are reportedly taking their time while waiting on the trade market for superstar forward Kevin Durant to fully develop. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reported Monday on SportsCenter the Nets are seeking an all-star player and several first-round picks in the blockbuster deal. The market is still taking shape, Woj said. I think it's incumbent in some of the other teams to be creative and start bringing to Brooklyn's ideas. Going out and seeing if they can get players, picks that would put the kind of package together it would to get Durant. He added, I think the Nets are trying to create an outline for the rest of the league about the kind of package they would want back in Kevin Durant. I think the Rudy Gobert trade to Minnesota started to frame that. Movement has been slow on the KD front since the business manager Rick Kleiman confirmed to Woj last week four-time NBA scoring champion wanted a trade. The Miami Heat and Phoenix Suns are among Durant's preferred destinations, but the Nets aren't planning to cater to his desires and plan to accept the most fruitful offer per Woj. Another team, the Warriors. You want him to go? He wants the team back up with the Warriors. That's great, good, go there. But you better get Jordan Poole, Wiggins, and picks should be in that deal as well. One alternative that has emerged in the recent days: the potential renewed union with the Golden State Warriors, reigning NBA champions who won back-to-back titles in 2017-2018. Marcus Thomas II of the Athletic reported Warriors core isn't pushing the front office to acquire Durant and would be fine trying to defend the title without a major roster move, but if something develops, the team stars are open to the idea. I mean, it's freaking Kevin Durant, a source told Thompson. Exactly, that's where people got to look, it's Kevin Durant. It's Kevin Durant we're talking about here. This isn't, Joe Harris. I'm just using another net as an example. No, Joe Harris is a very good player, but he's not going to attract the trade market like Kevin Durant. This is not Patty Mills. This is not, one of these smaller end players that are solid, but they're not, this is Kevin Durant we're talking about. We're not talking about some role player on the Detroit Pistons, right? Durant is coming off a 2021-2022 season where he averaged 29.9 points, which was tied for third in the NBA, along with 7.4 rebounds, 6.4 assists, and 2.1 threes while shooting 51.8% from the field. The Nets couldn't overcome an endless cycle of drama, which included James Harden being traded to the 76ers, Ben Simmons being unable to play following his arrival from the Sixers, and Kyrie Irving being limited to 29 games due to the mandate. KD is signed through 2025-2026 season as part of a 4-year, $194.2 million contract, which creates potential salary cap hurdles for interested teams, but also represents the opportunity to acquire a long-term franchise cornerstone. So far, it appears the market is a little sluggish to develop as teams reevaluate their rosters after the draft and the early stages of free agency. The action should pick up as training camp moves closer, though. So that's the truth, too. I wanted to mention that a little bit earlier. With the fact that free agency just ended, with the fact that free agency just ended, it's like, it's a teams are still kind of evaluating what they got in free agency, what they could do with the pieces they have, if there's any guys still out there that they would want. By the way, just got this report in. TJ Warren has signed with the Nets. So free agent guard agrees to a 1-year deal with Brooklyn. So the Nets get TJ Warren. An interesting move there. Not bad. Depth piece. Although he could play a bigger role depending on what he would get. But, so, you add another wing to the equation. TJ Warren was the guy that had the big-time bubble performance. We'll probably get more to this tomorrow, but Warren in 2020 only played 4 games. Did not play last season. So the Nets get TJ Warren. So, it's a solid asset for them. You get 2 wings now with Royce O'Neal and Warren, 2 wings that could play that are solid pieces. The one big thing is just how those guys are going to complement without Kevin Durant and Kyrie, because those 2 guys are 2 guys that are very good for the situation we have now. They could be those kind of 3-and-D type players. It's interesting how they fit with the new look Nets if we do in fact not if we do, it's just a matter of when we trade, Kyrie and KD. That's the real question. All right, so let's get to the rest of the sports here. Today you got the Padres, Mariners, Marlins, Angels, Nationals, Phillies, Rangers, Orioles, Tigers, Guardians, Rays, Red Sox, Cardinals, Braves, Brewers, Cubs, Astros, Royals, White Sox, Twins, A's, Blue Jays, Diamondbacks, Giants, and Rockies, Dodgers. Mets today against the Reds. Mets come into today's games, as I mentioned, 50-30. Reds are 27-52. Max Scherzer takes the mound for the first time in a long time since his oblique injury. He's 5-1 with a 2.54 ERA, and the Reds have Nick Lodolo on the mound. He's 1-2 with a 5.52 ERA, over/under set at 9, 6:40 Eastern on SNY. Yankees today open up a 2-game set against the Pirates. Yankees are 58-22. Pirates are 32-47. Yankees have Jameson Taillon on the mound. He's 9-1 with a 3.32 ERA, and the Pirates have Jose Quintana on the mound. He's 1-4 with a 3.43 ERA, over/under set at 9. 7:05 Eastern. You can find it on Yes. So, quick 2-game set in Pittsburgh, and then you head to Boston for 4, which looking forward to that series. But obviously, you got to take care of business against the Pirates. They're not a good team. They're 15 games below 500. So take care of business against them, and you'll be in a good spot come when you match up against the Red Sox later on in the week. By the way, that Red Sox series, that's the Sunday night game, will be that in that Red Sox series as well. So that's a big series. And for the Red Sox, too, it's more so a bigger series for the Red Sox. The Yankees, it's a big series. Anytime Yankees-Red Sox meet, it's a big series. They're a rivalry. They've been a rivalry for so many years, one of the greatest rivalries in all sports. So it's always a big series whenever they meet, no matter how good the teams are. And the Red Sox have really picked it up, but it's a big series for them because if they want to, make it anywhere. Right now, the American League East is completely not even close. But if the Red Sox want to at least keep it within 10 or 9 games, they got to perform well in that series. And if the Yankees want to continue to cruise along 13, 14 games up, they got to take care of business there too. But you got to first worry about the Pirates. 2-game set there. And as I talked about yesterday, it says Yankee fans should get a good look at Brian Reynolds, one of the trade targets we could look at as an outfield option, come the trade deadline in the next few weeks. So, an option there. As for fantasy baseball, though, I am currently winning in my main league 54-27. And in my other league, I am winning 80-30. So, both leagues currently winning in. I got to make some roster moves. I just put in pitching today is Scherzer. That's it for my one league, which I'm okay with because Max Scherzer is very good. And then in my other league, I got Michael Kopech and Jameson Taillon. Now, I got to put Judge back into the lineup, Real Muto. It's funny because on the days off, you have to, all these different, I usually put in all who's playing. Like Monday, there's not many games on, so I'll have to bench a lot of good players because they're not playing. So I'll put just the guys that are in. So right now my bench looks really good, but I gotta take some of the guys off the bench and figure this out. So anyway, that will do it for today's podcast. Another good one in the books. Both Yankees and Mets tonight. So back in action. Yankees in Pittsburgh, Mets in Cincinnati. So both on the road. Mets will be back home though on Thursday. So that will do it. See you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.